Ballpark Nation presents. Welcome to Go Astros, your look at the two-time World Series champions from three guys who have been here since Art Howe had hair.
The thing I find funny about that, guys, before you start the show, Andy, is are there any actual photos of Art Howe with hair? Now that I think about it, have we?
I have a card somewhere, and it, at the very least, he has mutton chops.
That's
what I assume they were connected to something under the cap.
Fair. Okay. On with the show, guys.
This is the important things you're going to hear about today on Go Astros. It's a little bit of a homecoming week for me and our guest host. First of all, welcome, everybody. It is August 12th, Monday. We're going to talk about a 5-1 week, which I don't think we've had the opportunity to talk about this year. At least it didn't feel like it. So a lot of good Astros news, but Brian and Jim are here as usual. And today we have a guest.
As usual, I haven't been on in 3 weeks, guys.
Well, it's like we have two guests. But we do have Michael Nash, Astro and Toffee on Elon's masturbation machine. If you follow him, it's real. What else would you call it? Political discourse? It's a thing. Just go for it.
I think I'm supposed to call it it's okay to shit all over people's service, whether or not you've been near a recruitment office.
That happens on all the social media platforms, Jim.
Okay. I guess like getting spat on for the 60s, though, right? But different? I don't know.
Hey, it doesn't happen on Threads. You know why? Because nothing happens on Threads.
No one's on Threads.
So with us today, we have Michael Nash. We're going to talk a little bit about minor league baseball because that seems to be one of the topics when the Astros aren't winning is what do we have coming up and why do the guys who do come up, even though they're incredible prospects like Pedro Leon, just don't seem to be making that jump when they get up here. But before we get to that, it was a 5-1 week. Very impressive sweep against the Boston Red Sox in Fenway, which I realized is the second year in a row we've swept the Red Sox in Fenway. Thoughts and prayers to Brian because his wife is a large Red Sox fan.
How was the couch, Brian?
How was the weekend, Brian?
I made sure to make dinner last night because figured that was the way to make sure that
you slept in your bed.
Things things stayed copacetic. So I made Cajun Creole and made that work. Fortunately, it was a day game, not a night game last night, so it gave me a chance to try to compensate.
After the last out, even my wife asked how Brian and Aaron were doing. So I'm just glad everybody's.
Why my wife likes Jess so much, as we all do.
There you go.
Yeah, that's nicer than I would have been because I would have served steak for all the ribbies that happened.
Oh,
what
my
a
wife
pest.
is not so I can get away with this. So thoughts about the series, guys, because this was as good as the Astros have played pretty much all year. Jim, we'll start with you.
Well, it's funny because obviously, April was what April was, right? And if you take away April, which I know you cannot do, but you take away April, it's actually been a very good Astros team throughout the year. And then what we had for the last couple of weeks in August is what you see out of the Astros every August is the dog days of summer and all of that stuff that is only magnified now because there's not a 10-game lead in the division to fall back on. But it was nice to get a couple of wins. It could have gone either way, which, as we've talked about on the show, the beginning of the season, those weren't the wins the Astros were getting, and now they are getting them. And then all of a sudden see the offense up and down the lineup hit, most importantly, seeing the guys we need to hit, knowing that Kyle Tucker, it does look like, is going to at least be back by September if everything continues to go. I know that's a stupid thing to say because we don't know. But no, I thought it was as encouraging a series win as possible. I just can't believe that after I'd made nice with the Mets, they went and fucked me like that. But other than that, everything else is fine.
Brian, what were your impressions?
I mean, one, I'm still bitter at the Mets about 1986. So,
see, I'd gotten over that, Brian. I even apologized to some guys in New York, and now this.
This is the space for us, though. Of course, Mets fans treated me really well in the fall of 2017, when, of course, we were beating the Yankees. But anyway, So since Jim highlighted the hitting. Spencer Arguetti and Hunter Brown seemed on a mission to strike every batter out.
Yeah.
And part of the big story of change of the Astros in April, Jim points out they were losing close games and they weren't getting clutch hitting. Those were things I knew would turn around over the long run. The biggest worry in the first month of the season is the starting pitching was god-awful. And that has really turned around. And in particular, Hunter Brown has gone from a guy who you cringed every time he got out there and worried about that to someone you can rely on to get you a high quality start and keep you in the ballgame. He's turned into one of the better starters, and that's a big development. And Spencer Arrighetti has, had rookie struggles. Michael will talk about this when we talk about sort of prospects and people coming up. But part of that is AAA is not as good as the majors, and it takes some time for these guys to adjust. And he has been slowly but surely getting himself better. That's been a huge help because, again, they completely lack corners in the rotation. They have to go with these guys until somebody gets healthy and off the IL.
Yeah, Nash, talk a little bit about Spencer Arrighetti and his progression, because the last 6 starts, I think he has like a 3.5 ERA. Now, a lot of that was helped by this weekend's performance. But his last 2 performances, he has 25 strikeouts or 24 strikeouts. I can't do math right now. Looks a lot less timid. Looks like he's a lot more sure of his stuff. And I know there's no way to quantify that outside of actual performance. But what are you seeing from him that we weren't seeing earlier?
Before he speaks, I want to say something. You were wearing, did you know, Nash, that you're pretty much wearing what would be considered a throwback hat next season?
Yes.
I know it's coming. I've gotten a little bit of a description of what it looks like.
There was a whole selection of old caps that I had to choose from this morning.
Yeah, because the hooks will probably have a new brand next year. So yeehaw.
Far too many hats in the closet along with
yeah, I get you.
But not like Jim, but quite a few.
We don't say that out loud. Jessica does listen to the show, everybody.
So one of the things that, always typically, I should say always, it typically happens when a young pitcher comes up is they're somewhat overwhelmed when they first come up to the major leagues, right? Spencer, though, is a bit of a different cat. He is very analytically minded. He studies what he does and the quality of his pitches, going back and looking at video as well or more than any other pitcher I've ever seen coming through the minors. This is a kid who's really, really smart and dedicated to his craft. And so any bumps in the road that he's having, he's talking with his coaches and he's talking about pitch shapes and combinations and things of that nature. And so if there's a challenge and he's finding out that, this particular pitch isn't doing what they think that it should be doing, he's working to address it pretty quickly. Very, very heady pitcher. I don't know that we should expect that the guy's going to strike out 10 plus guys every time he goes out there, right? Everybody goes, I should say strikeout pitchers go on runs where everything is just working. You're striking everybody out. But this is a guy who, really was seen as a good pitcher when he was in high school, went off to a great D1 program, didn't get an opportunity, went to Louisiana Lafayette, which is becoming a pitching factory apparently for the Houston Astros.
Right. That and the DR, right? Yeah.
He keeps selecting kids out of that program who then come, into our pitching lab. And all of a sudden, after a year or two, they're wonderful pitchers. They adapt to what we're doing very, very quickly. And you see that in what Spencer's doing. And it's absolutely remarkable. And we'll talk a little bit more, I'm sure, about what's going on in the minor leagues. But it's a very telling sign of, what the Astros player development department is doing. And Spencer's a great testament to that.
Nash, I wonder, because there was, I think anybody that's neutral about how they're watching stuff can see that there was definitely a lot of talent there, even in the games when he was getting blown up, that I think a lot of us felt like he's partly up here because necessity, not necessarily it's necessarily ready for him to be here. But how much of it was the success of Luis Garcia and Christian Javier and even Hunter Brown's immediate success, do you think tainted how outsiders were viewing when Arrighetti wasn't striking everybody out going, maybe he's a bum?
I think it's natural for fans to want immediate success. You want success for every player who comes up, from the minor leagues. It's just not realistic. It's a Sorry, it's a different ball game in the major leagues versus AAA baseball. It just simply is. You know, you may encounter from the pitching side a roster in AAA where you've got 1, 2, or 3 guys who might play Major League Baseball one day. In the major leagues, you got 9 guys in a lineup who killed the game in AAA. Right?
Mm-hmm.
It's a different animal, and it's as much mental making the game in Major League Baseball as it is, do you have the stuff? You don't bring up guys who typically don't have the stuff unless you're, you know, Blair Hensley. You know, I'm sorry, that just, you know, that's an absolutely emergency starter.
Welcome.
Don't come at me, family, please. You know, anybody who plays AAA baseball is a very, very good baseball player.
If you're coming after us, line up behind Singleton's wife, who still wants Andy's head on the plate. So.
I mean, seriously, I saw your kid pitch at UT. Fine baseball player. Fine baseball player. But Major League Baseball players are different cats. So expecting, you know, somebody to come up and just immediately tear the cover off of the ball, it's just not. It's not realistic.
Unless you're Jordan Alvarez or Lance Burke. I mean, I'm thinking of you think about the history of the Astros, and there's been a couple of guys that just stand out. They came up and immediately hit. Berkman was one of those guys. Bagwell, to some extent, was one of those guys, except he didn't hit for power immediately when he came up. Jordan was everything that you hoped he would be the second he got on a major league roster. And then there's not, I mean, I'm sure we can come up with 1 or 2 more, but you're talking about maybe 3 to 5 guys in the history of a franchise who have come up and had immediate impact kind of level success.
Right. And then somehow they become the standard, right? Yeah. By which everybody else is going to be judged.
Point of the question was, they become the standard, whereas.
And that's not fair.
The Framber Valdez route is the more likely one where it takes time to work it out.
Right.
Or the Kyle Tucker route.
Right.
Or the Alex Bregman route.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Right. I mean, these are guys who absolutely obliterated AA and AAA baseball, right? And had all the bloodlines and the expectations since they were 18 years old that they were going to be stars. And they came up and they struggled for a minute. And then once it clicked in, and they're absolutely wonderful baseball players.
All right. Before we get too much into the minor leagues and the whole call-up system and what the Astros have in the pipeline, I don't want to pass up the fact that we're done playing the Rangers for the year. Thank God. And we managed to win the Silver Boot again with what is ostensibly our worst team in the last 8 years. And the Rangers, defending World Series champions, could not even beat the lowly Astros in a season series. So we've won the Silver Boot for, I guess, the 8th year in a row. I've honestly lost count. We're of a little bit different mind on this show individually about what the importance of the Silver Boot is. Everybody wants to win the season series. Everybody wants to win as many baseball games as we can. Brian, I'm going to start with you. Are you pro Silver Boot or anti Silver Boot or indifferent?
I am indifferent. You know, it made more sense when it was the 2 series in interleague baseball, and it was, you know, it's a long season creating some sort of, you know, diversions, essentially things to talk about. But you're in the division, you play so much. It felt like a bigger deal to me this year, I think, because it came down to the last game than it should be. And the analogy that I use is in college football, LSU and Arkansas play for a trophy, also known as the boot. Usually as LSU plays Arkansas later in the season, it is an inverse. The amount that LSU fans care about that trophy is an inverse to how the season is going. When the season is going very well, they do not care. Beating Arkansas is de rigueur, and we're now worried about the SEC championship or things like that. When the season is going poorly, you know, the team rushes over to, and there's all these pictures on my social media of the boot. And so it's a similar thing. It's like, you know, to Jim's point, because it's not such a good year for the Astros so far, that may be turning around. The boot seems a bigger deal than it should be, in my opinion.
All right, Jim.
I'm pro Silver Boot. For there's actually many reasons I'm pro, and I came up with 2 more as Brian was speaking. One, Texas and OU play for a trophy as well, which I think is as dumb as the Silver Boot. Ironically enough, it's the gold cowboy hat, and it doesn't matter how good those teams are. There are lots of photos when the players are around getting to touch the hat. I do agree that up until the Rangers pulled what they pulled in 17. I don't think it was a rivalry that mattered. But I do also think that anything that's a waypoint that you can celebrate in a long 162 game season, you should celebrate it. I also think that one of the things that's got me kind of concerned is I can see a world where Major League Baseball gets rid of divisions, gets rid of leagues. And I think that in a game that is as long as baseball is 162, you need to keep those things because in many ways, those are the true measure of how your season went, not playoff success, because we've all discussed how get into the playoffs, get hot. It doesn't matter what your 162 game season was, right? So, yeah, I mean, it's silly. It's not I don't like have anything in my office, of which I have everything in my office that's going to like has any memories of my favorite Silver Boot win. But anytime we can beat South Oklahoma, I'm into it. And I think if we're going to remember it that way, then yeah, let's do it.
I think you'll know when the Astros window actually closed when Jim Crane starts giving away mini Silver Boots several times a year as the gate giveaway. Oh, look, we collect all 9 of them next year. Yeah, it's interesting to me because it's similar. A&M and South Carolina, because that historical rivalry have a similar thing where I guess it's now 13 years old, the Bonham Trophy. And they had to dig a little bit into Texas history to find some guy who had a connection to 2 states. And say, oh, well, you're playing for this. It's fine. I still am old enough to be a National League guy, and I don't care about playing the Rangers. I guess I care more because they've decided to be competitive now. Because for the past several years they haven't been, and when they were good
in some seasons,
in the early 2000s when they were good, the Astros weren't. So it wasn't much fun to watch getting pounded by them several times a year. I like the shoe being on the other foot. Certainly, I don't think that foot to be wearing a boot.
I do wish it wasn't a silver boot, though, right, Nash? Like, to me, it's something it took them 3 seconds to come up with. What should we call the trophy? I know, Texas. Like, maybe like it should be like, I don't know, like a pothole in I-45 or something like that. We should. That's what it should be.
Winner gets the deed to the Buc-ee's in Madisonville.
That's right. Yeah, it's the Buc-ee's trophy. Whoever gets they get to take over it for a year, and
whichever team owner wins gets the keys to Centerville, Texas, right?
Something like that.
You own it, right?
Unlimited kolaches at the checkout.
Right? So, to Andy's point, for 40 plus years of my life, I couldn't care less about the Rangers. We never played them. They played in a crap little stadium in Arlington, and now all of a sudden, Rob Manfred's telling me I'm supposed to be rivals with the Rangers. Don't care. I really don't. Except
it was the hurricane, man. It was when they were like assholes about the hurricane that I think finally made people care.
I come to expect no more, no less from Dallas, which is the fakest city in the United States of America. So, from that perspective, okay, yeah, they were assholes to Houston when they were really in trouble, and I guess even worse, they won't own it. They won't just own it that they were a-holes. No, we have this excuse, our season ticket, whatever. Y'all shut up. You're a-holes. Yeah. So my son was at the final game, and he likes to travel around the United States, by himself, little foodie guy, test restaurants, and usually coincides with Astros being in town, right? So this is his first chance to go to an Astros Rangers game by himself. And of course, he's a rather large guy, 6'4" plus, wearing all of his Astros gear. So he doesn't usually get harassed. And he texted me after the game, after we won, and he said, "Dad, the only thing Arlington's got is they're much nicer than Yankees fans." And that's it. That was it.
That's because Yankees fans are actual real baseball fans.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what it is, right?
He wasn't super impressed by the stadium. He wasn't super impressed by the food in the stadium or anything like that. And we whooped the tar out of him. So the only thing they got going for them is they're nicer than Yankees fans.
When I get around to covering them in Ballpark Nation season 5, when I've run out of teams, I will absolutely have him on the show to chime in on.
Okay.
Just think it could have been better. To Jim's point, the silver boot feels like some marketing person from Wisconsin popped into that, and they wear boots in Texas. A&M in Texas used to play every year, and I guess we're going to start that again this year. And they used to play for the winner got a trip to a whorehouse. That's a prize.
That's a prize, my friends.
That's incentive.
I mean, the Rangers are familiar with whorehouses anyway, so I don't know why we're just ignoring that part. Anyway.
Yeah. I mean, we've all seen The Best Little Whorehouse, and if you haven't, stop the show, watch it, then come back because it's that good of that's a Japanese slingshot.
Hey, I went to A&M despite the Aggie dance. Not because of it.
Yeah, y'all are real manly over there, though, boy. I've seen that scene. Go for it.
There is all kinds of hooting and hollering and boot slapping. Anyway,
I'm gonna say this as an LSU fan. I'm glad you two are back together. This is great for us.
And tune in a couple of weeks when Lone Star Yell Fight is back as we preview me and Andy's journey of coming back together.
And how long will we stay friends?
I think we'll stay friends for a long time. I think both of us are annoyed we're coming back together, so that might be the uniting thing about the whole show.
Fair. Speaking of the Rangers, one of the key pieces to our offense came alive during that Rangers series. He'd been scuffling a little bit, especially at home. And I'm talking about Yordan Alvarez. Alex Bregman also had a great series in Boston. It took him to get to Boston there. I mean, so much to the point that people are talking about Alex Bregman possibly signing with Boston as a free agent because he hit so well there. That was on Twitter last night. And I was like, what the hell are they? Oh, they're just making things up. But Yordan Alvarez, who is, to all apologies to Jose Altuve, the guy that drives our offense right now, over the last 7 days, 429 average, 586 on base percentage, 1,190 slugging for a whopping 1,776 OPS, 9 hits, 5 home runs, and only 21 at bats. Bregman had 27 at bats in the same time period. When Yordan's hot, is there a better hitter? Brian, we'll start with you.
You start with me. On the Astros, no. In Major League Baseball, probably not. He is beyond elite. He's terrifying because you can't pitch to him. He has no holds. You try to go away, he'll pop it over the fence to left field. You know, he's such a great hands hitter, right? He can manipulate the bat head in any part of the zone and drive the ball anywhere. He's just a picture perfect hitter. And when his timing is on, when he is getting that front foot down and he's prepared to hit and he's in a good way, he's impossible to pitch to. He probably might be the best hitter that we've seen since Bonds. He's that dangerous when he's on. You could pitch to Aaron Judge. Sorry, Yankees fans. Yeah. We've proven it in the playoffs. He can't touch us.
Well, I think it's the Earl Campbell quote that Bum Phillips had. You know, he might not be at the top of the class, but it's a very short roll that you call when you're calling that class. I think you can make an argument for regular season Judge being up there. There's probably one or two other guys, but that's the list.
I was talking with friends of the show, Emily Nyman, yesterday because it was the day before, where both Judge and Alvarez were intentionally walked in the most ridiculous time of the game that made zero sense, because her joke was that both those guys are in scoring position from the on deck circle. Like, that's how bad, how particularly, like I said, regular season Aaron Judge, because to your point, Nash, in the playoffs, he's a swing and miss machine. But the fact is that he, Brian, he hits for high OPS. He hits, he can hit base hits if that's what he needs to do. Even when he wasn't hitting home runs, he was still hitting base hits and getting on base. It was just, he's something else to watch.
Yeah, that's part of the story too. Michael says when he's, the question is when he's on, but when he's off, he still controls at bats about as well as any batter you've ever seen. A pitcher that rarely looks in control of a bat with Yordan, even when the pitcher's ahead in the count. Yordan does. And when he's slumping, he's still really effective because he doesn't, his slumps are power, but not batting average, not his batting eye. And so, he's awesome.
Somebody doing the show from Gaza? What's happening out there?
So, there we go.
Sorry, go ahead.
I live 2 blocks from a hospital, and they're supposed to turn the sirens off when they hit the light down there, and that ambulance decided not to. So I need to let them know I'm podcasting, and that's much more important than what they're doing.
I thought somebody was coming to rescue the show.
Excuse me.
So, Brian, Yordan Alvarez.
He's very good.
This is the hard-hitting insight that you can expect from this show all the time.
He put some Red Sox pitchers in the hospital this weekend. That's what the ambulance is for.
Fair.
I think the most impressive thing for me over the last 7 games, he's been hitting well, but with the 5 home runs, with the double that he had, the extra base hits, these aren't angry Jordan hits. This was all just within his swing, not trying to kill the ball, and it went really far when he made contact. That's when he's at his best. We've seen angry Jordan, and angry Jordan can break a scoreboard 500 feet off the ground. Angry Jordan can kill the Seattle Mariners' playoff hopes in a game 1 of a 5-game series. That's angry Jordan. This was just, I'm having fun Jordan. And that's after he rolled his ankle, I think, Friday night. He's just really impressive to watch. And there's been very few players in my life that I'll stop what I'm doing. Justin Verlander, especially a couple of years ago, was a guy I will stop what I'm doing and watch him pitch. Yordan Alvarez, I will stop what I'm doing and watch his at-bat intently. And I think I would do that even if he was on a different team because he's just that much fun to watch.
Right. It's must-see TV. It's like, when Barry Bonds was in his prime, you didn't miss a Bonds at-bat. It may, probably 30% of the time be an intentional walk, but those other 67% of the time, you wanted to watch that guy hit because you didn't know what was going to happen. And at any time he could send a 112-mile-an-hour laser at somebody, right? It's just you stop and you watch somebody perform when they're at the top of their craft. And that guy definitely is one of the handful of people is the best hitters in the game for sure.
Well, the 2024 Astros certainly have established stars like Jordan. We also have a host of rookies who have played this year. The latest is Zach DeCenzo, who was called up from Sugar Land. He's going to man first base, even though he's not really a first baseman by trade. He looks serviceable so far there this year. He looks like, athletic enough to field the position. But he was brought up for his offense. Let's be real honest. So far, mixed reviews. He had a great day Saturday, struggled a little bit with major league pitching so far, as you would expect, because they have ungodly breaking stuff in the majors, to quote Bull Durham. But he's the latest in a line of guys. Pedro Leon's on the roster right now. Joey Loperfido got called up. Jake Bloss got called up. I'm not even going to get into the host of pitchers because I think we're up to what, Nash, 32 pitchers this year?
32 pitchers.
32 pitchers.
31
Is that the most in Astros history? Yeah. But I think I counted 9 or 10 rookies that have played some part of this Astros season. Mixed reviews, to be sure. We've fallen in love with Joey Loperfido to the point that people were willing to throw themselves off mountains when he was traded to the Blue Jays for a guy who's done nothing but give us 2 really good starts. But that's a whole
2 dominant starts. It's not even he's really good. Like, he's been dominant. Like.
I'd like him to go a little bit more than 5 and change, but yeah, he's been really good. Nash is on the show.
Bringing Lisa Lowe back to us, dude. So don't even.
Men our vintage are very, very happy about that.
I'm telling you, a certain age we're into that.
Nash, and then we'll all contribute, but. The Astros farm system is not highly ranked. It has not been highly ranked for years, and Astros fans have excused that by saying, well, we keep producing a guy a year that gets Rookie of the Year votes, and that's been our kind of, it's fine, we don't need minor leaguers. We're getting to the point in this arc of this window where you do start needing younger guys who can come up and contribute on a more regular basis. The Astros have shown this year that they don't necessarily have those guys that have been ready, and Jake Bloss is the guy that comes to mind. In no world should Jake Bloss have been pitching in the major leagues this year. They needed somebody. They didn't want to start the clock on a guy in AAA, so they brought up a AA guy, I think, to hopefully catch lightning in a bottle. He didn't do horribly, but he clearly wasn't ready for the majors, as witnessed by what the Blue Jays have done with him. Nothing. So what do we have currently on the roster that's any good? What do we have to look forward to, and do any of those guys live in Sugar Land right now?
In Sugar Land, if you're talking about position players,
I'm talking about anybody.
Well, we'll start with position players then. Absent one guy, no. And I don't mean to be rude about that. Again, I'll go back to what I said before. There's only been 21,000 players play in Major League Baseball since the 1870s. You have to be exceptionally good to be a Major League Baseball player. And one of the things that is always a truism, and you have to think about this beyond looking at numbers, beyond digging below those numbers to find certain things about certain players, is when you reach 25, 26, 27, and you have not had a cup of coffee in the major leagues, I hate to tell you, but the egg timer is almost done. Okay. Mm-hmm. Aging curves in Major League Baseball are real. And they, in the last 10 years, have accelerated, meaning your prime starting earlier, your decline is starting earlier in Major League Baseball. So if you're not getting tested in Major League Baseball at 23, 24 years old, and you've reached 26, 27, and your decline now starts at 29, 30, you have a very small, useful life in Major League Baseball left. And if you're not tearing up AAA baseball at 26, 27 years old, you really don't have much of a future beyond maybe coming up and playing a utility role for a couple of years, right? And not to say that's not useful, but we're talking about prospects. Right. And when you think about prospect, you want somebody who's going to come up and is going to play and man a position for 5, 6, 7, 8 years at cheap, controllable prices. That's what you're looking for. That's what you're banking for. And you need to have 3 or 4 of those guys, in your system, primed and coming up and ready to go if you want to continue to compete for a long time. That's what Jeff Luhnow taught us when he built this program all those years ago, right? And we have, for various different reasons, been unable to develop that on the hitting side in Houston for several years. Pitching wise, I will never discount an Astros pitcher, and I don't care what age they are.
Right.
Because it's a different animal. You can come up at 28 years old. See Ronel Blanco. Ronel Blanco made one tweak. He found a changeup, and all of a sudden, we've got a beyond serviceable starting pitcher coming up. And, you got a Spencer Arrighetti. Look, I could name 6, 7 guys in the last 7 years who came out of nowhere in the Astros pitching lab that were not on any kind of prospect lists. Who cares about prospect lists? I want to be straight about this. They're fun, they're entertaining, but about 2 months after they come out, they're useless because of the development of individual players. Those rankings don't matter anymore. A guy who was 18 may now be the 2nd or 3rd best prospect in baseball because you had no idea over the summertime. He added, 2 miles an hour, a bunch of of what we used to call hop to his fastball, right? And found a sweeper that he didn't throw before. And now all of a sudden he's striking everybody out in AA baseball. And he came out of nowhere, right? Astros pitching lab is exceptional. And there's probably, I'd say, at least half a dozen arms in AA and AAA that I could see making a leap. And there's probably 2 times that many in A and in the FCL that have either a combination of velocity, movement, athletic repeatable deliveries, funky deliveries. That's one of the things Arrighetti gets is his arm comes at an angle that's very different than you typically see in the batter's box. And that's a little bit of an advantage, right? Kind of a slingshot, sort of approach, in his arm using old school terminology. So pitching, I don't worry about. Astros develop pitchers. Hitting is a completely different animal. There are maybe 2 guys in the upper levels that I think have a reasonable chance of making the major leagues. And that's Jacob Melton and Bryce Matthews, simply because of their athletic ability. And it is superior athletic ability. They need to make better contact on their swings on strikes. They're actually very good at controlling the strike zone. What they do with the ball when they hit it is what needs to change. They hit too many ground balls. They hit too many pop-ups. But when they get hold of one, Melton has exit velocities that are only bested by Yordan Alvarez. He absolutely murders the ball when he gets a hold of one. Bryce Matthews can hit the ball out of the ballpark anywhere and is an unbelievable athlete. I have confidence. They both work really, really hard. The player development staff is working on tweaks for those two guys. Mm-hmm. And I think they've got a really good chance. But, they're already 22, 23 years old, so they need to get on it pretty quick.
So, and I'm sure Brian and Jim have questions for you. Talk to us a little bit about Zach DeZenzo and what we can look forward to, because it looks like he's going to be the first baseman against left-handed pitching for a while. And then conversely, Pedro Leon, because those are our two rookie hitters that are on the Major League roster right now. What can they contribute the rest of this year through this stretch run?
We'll start with the bad news. I don't believe Pedro Leon is a Major League player, period. End of story. He is, like the other two gentlemen I mentioned, a superior athlete. He has never shown in AAA any consistent level of success.
Right.
You'll go a 2-week stretch, do great, and then disappear for a month and a half. So why would anybody expect that that somehow is going to translate into improved performance in Major League Baseball when it's usually the opposite, right? Fun player to watch, speed to burn, power galore, that arm, oh my God. But he simply is not a good enough hitter in my view to be anything other than a utility player at best. Zach DeZenzo is someone I have been in love with since they drafted. He's a very good athlete. He played shortstop at Ohio State. So can he be a good first baseman? I think with good work, yeah. With some, but he didn't spend a lot of time there at Ohio State. Didn't spend a lot of time there in the minors, working on first base. But he's a good athlete. So can he play first base? I think with some work, yes, absolutely. But the dude is a hitter. He struggled at making good contact at Ohio State. That's why he wasn't drafted after his junior year. Did a better job his senior year and has consistently, at each step up the ladder, improved on his pitch recognition and making improved contact in the zone. This is what you want to see in player development. Somewhat ignore the stats. Stats are very, very important. Don't get me wrong, right? You have to produce at a certain level. But when you are making improvements on subtle things along the way and each step up the ladder when you're facing better competition, that's something you want to watch. And Zach DeZenzo can absolutely murder a baseball and murder a baseball from foul pole to foul pole. He's a very, very strong young man. I mean, he has one home run in his major league career, and it went 434 feet.
It was yesterday.
How many home runs has Alex Bregman hit in his career that have gone more than 434 feet?
One.
2. He hit one yesterday.
Oh, that's right.
He's hit 2 that have gone 434 feet. He has an exit velocity on one of his 108 miles an hour. Bregman and Altuve have hit 55 balls in their careers combined of exit velocities with 108 miles an hour.
Wow.
The kid has got power galore. And I think that Zach DeZenzo has a chance to be one of those guys who can anchor a position for 5 or 6 years. I don't know necessarily that's right now. I mean, it's an accelerated pace. How many games has he played in AA and AAA this year? 50? Not much, but he does not look like he's overwhelmed at the plate.
I was just going to say, he doesn't look scared up there.
No, he really doesn't. He's done a fantastic job of making some little tweaks. He does not have as big a leg kick as he did when he came from Ohio State. He's done little hand adjustments, etc. But the key is not chasing, finding pitches that you can hunt in the strike zone and then making quality contact with them. Key to hitting, and he's getting there. And it'll be a lot of fun if he gets all the way there, because like I said, he can absolutely drive the ball anywhere in the ballpark.
You mentioned position. Am I wrong in thinking that the Astros view him as the potential replacement for Bregman? Should Bregman move on as a free agent this year?
I don't think it's wrong, to say that. I mean, from my perspective and watching him in the minor leagues, he can play an adequate third base. Very few people can play third base the way Alex Bregman does. But if that's the standard, well, good luck. You don't have any
Yeah.
like that, right? Right, but compared to what the alternatives are in the system, I think Zach has to be the first choice, to play there. A lot of people are clamoring for another young man, who's in AAA right now. And I have I don't know necessarily that Shea Whitcomb would be a disaster at third base. But
that's a ringing endorsement.
I just don't think that his numbers at AAA as an offensive player translate well, to the major leagues. And so I think if we were choosing between what we have in the system, who's going to play third base if Alex leaves, I think it would be Zach.
Can you explain to people watching and listening, like, I think people that are casuals, they'll look at somebody's numbers from AAA and look at them purely at a number basis and say, look, he's done X number of home runs in the PCL. Can you maybe explain to them why it is such a hitter-friendly league and why those numbers should be looked at with some degree of a grain of salt?
Altitude.
Wow. Okay. Next question.
It's altitude. I mean, seriously, you go to Reno, you go to Albuquerque, you go to Colorado Springs, all of these parks are play at 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 feet of elevation. The ball flies. It's just not comparable, to. I mean, okay, so here's a quick and dirty take on this, right? If you've got a player in the Astros system and he's a hitter, his performance in AA baseball matters a billion times more than his performance in AAA. Period. End of story. The Texas League is a pitcher-friendly environment, and it's filled with really good pitchers. You have a lot of pitchers in AAA who are hangers-on. Peter Solomon is still hanging on and getting lit up by Sugarland hitters, right? And that if you prove that you can tear the cover off the ball in AA, you're going to do fine in AAA. You're probably just working on a couple of different things, and you may be positionally blocked, right? But there's no reason for you to stay in AA anymore, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, hitting 25 home runs, even 30 home runs, and being 20% above league average as a hitter in the PCL doesn't turn me on when 21-year-old Kyle Tucker was 60% better than the league average at 21.
And Michael, I don't know if you're taking those numbers out of random, but those are about Pedro Leon's numbers in Sugarland this year.
He's about 70% better than league average.
No, he's about 20% better than league average.
Right. Yeah.
Not at the Kyle Tucker level he's at.
Yeah. Oh, that's exactly right. I mean, Jordan Alvarez, George Springer, and we're getting guys like Joey Loperfido, who's probably about 25% better than league average, at age 25, when guys like George Springer and Jordan Alvarez and Kyle Tucker were miles better than him in terms of performance and looking at numbers, under the hood, than Joey Loperfido. And God love him, Joey Cooks is a fun, entertaining guy, and he's great to watch fly around the outfield and everything. He is a fourth, fifth outfielder. That's what he is. And Billy's kid is wonderful story, et cetera. He'll be 27 years old next year and hasn't tasted a cup of coffee in the major leagues. And he's positionally challenged. What we gave up to get Yusei Kikuchi is a promising young pitcher and two guys who we liked, but who are utterly replaceable. Yeah,
and let's be honest, we liked one of them because of the last name.
Well, of course, it's
and there's nothing wrong with that, but let's not oversell what we gave up on.
Sure, Sure. And do I want to make rental trades all the time? No. But you do if you're in the middle of a pennant race. Because flags fly forever.
But I wanted to get Blake Snell for Aledmus Diaz. Why couldn't Dana Brown make that happen?
I don't know, because you'd have gone to jail for holding the other GM's wife hostage at a gunpoint or something, I mean, seriously.
I know we don't have a lot of time left, but I wanted to give some people your perspective of the way you look at things. And at what point, when you're looking at players at Fayetteville or, Ashburn, do you start to say, okay, that's a guy that I'm going to keep watching, because I do think he can be one of those guys when he makes it into AA, into Sugar Land, and maybe to the Astros? Like, when do you start looking and saying, all right, that's a guy that we need to keep an eye on?
Well, first of all, I'm looking first because I've been watching crud tons of minor league baseball for 40 years. And most of the time you see a guy on the field and the way he carries himself on the field, does he take his job defensively seriously?
Oh, okay.
Right? Is he lollygagging around out on the field, right? I mean, one of the things that drove me crazy about Fernando Tatis Jr. when he was here at San Antonio, that guy was a lollygagger at shortstop. He just knew he was going to, you knew he was going to play Major League Baseball, right? But he just took plays off, blah, blah, blah. It drove me crazy, right? Maybe he won't stay at shortstop. Maybe he's going to end up in right field. Guess where he ended up? Right field. And when he gets to the plate, does he look confident? Does he hit the ball hard? And does he swing at strikes? Guys who are up there who have a plan. And when they get their pitch, they drive the ball and it sounds different when it comes off of their bat. And then if you didn't know who the player was, like when I'm watching somebody, on the other team, and like, dang. And then you see he's playing in the Carolina League and he's 18, 19 years old. Bang, light goes off. This is a guy who's going to go someplace. Then or conversely, you look and he's 23 years old. It's like, yeah, no, he doesn't need to be down here. So those are the things that I'm looking for, in particular when it comes to a hitter. The pitcher, is their motion, is it repeatable?
Okay, yeah.
Are they throwing strikes? Are they capable of throwing breaking balls at any count and putting it where they want it? Right. It's pretty rare, to find somebody like that in the lower levels in A or A+, but those are the guys who jump off the screen at you. And then you go and you take a look at the numbers, and do the numbers justify what your eyes see? Right. So like if I'm watching, a pitcher and he's doing exactly what I described, but he has a max velo of 90 miles an hour. That's probably not going to translate well when you get to AA, much less, in the major leagues. There's a pitcher that we have, Julio Robina, who I absolutely love, except he has a max velo of about 91 miles an hour. He looks in many respects like a Framber Valdez clone. He can throw a curveball anywhere he wants at any time, right? And when he has it, nobody in AA can touch him. But it's backed up with about a 91 mile an hour fastball, which just probably is not going to play in Major League Baseball.
Yeah, if you got in a time machine and went back to, you got in a DeLorean and went back to 1985 with Doc Brown.
Yeah.
Like that could be effective, but it's also sort of a story about like players are better today.
Oh, well, there's Brian, that's exactly right. And one of the reasons why the aging curve is accelerating is because you got more guys throwing 97, 98 miles an hour, and the human body, their ability for their quick twitch reactions starts to deteriorate. And you have fewer and fewer guys throwing 92.
Tell me about it.
Fascinating. Yeah, exactly. It's a very different game than the one that was played, in reference to Brian's comment, going back, to when we were growing up, right? It's not a contact hitters game. It's a strike people out and hit home runs game. That's the reality.
Well, here's hoping that the Astros have more hitting homers out and more guys that pitched away from contact. We have 3 against the Rays this week. Randomly, because they play in St. Pete, of course, they have an earlier start time than any other home park in Major League. Games start at 5:50 tonight, guys. That's 6:50 local time. Perfect chance for nobody to drive from Tampa Bay into St. Petersburg, so crowds will be minimal. And then 3 against the White Sox at home. The Astros finally come home after several days on the road. So hopefully a good week. We struggled with these Rays a couple weeks ago. Hopefully we've got a better approach this week. We've got hot Jordan versus slumpy Jordan, so that'll help.
And if they need to get some toilet paper, they're going to be playing at abandoned Costco field, so there'll be a chance to get a lot of it down there in aisle 7.
It's not the good stuff, though.
Well, no, I mean, no, it's Costco brand. It's not like it's 1.5. But...
It's not. I like the extra soft.
It's like going to Costco on March 15, 2020.
Oh,
You just take whatever they've got there in the toilet paper aisle.
Hey, there are no lines at the concession stands. There's also no food, but that's a whole separate thing. That feels like a good place to leave it. Thank you very much, Nash, for being our guest today.
yeah.
For Brian, for Jim, I'm Andy. This is Go Astros, and let's pick up some games on first place this week. How about that? Go Astros.